enjoy those contrasting colors. You know what I mean? When we've got the bright green of the leaves and the grass, and then we've got the browns of the bark and the dirt and things like this, and the blues of the sky. So it's very important because when I look at something I enjoy, my mind will tell me that I'm having a good time and that I'm enjoying myself. So then, to align to that, my brain will release serotonin. So it's very funny. It's not what I'm looking at that makes me happy, but it's the narrative around what I enjoy that makes me happy. And it's very funny because you think about it, when you eat food that you think is delicious, it's not like the food is delicious, but you might say, oh, the salt, it might be salty, sweet, a little bit spicy. It might be the texture. It might be, you know, the, I don't know any other things about it, but essentially it's all these different sort of variables that we're layering one on top of the other that is making it enjoyable. So it's really, really funny because when I was in chefing, I sort of taught myself how to cook at a very high level through, you know, 15 years of experience and dedicating myself to it. But it's sort of like when I try and describe cooking to other people, when I'm cooking, I'm trying to create a flavor profile, a balance between sweet, salty, spices, different sort of herbs and things like that, the different textures. And it's like it's not just one thing. So I'm not just grabbing a steak and then just chucking salt on it, because that wouldn't be enjoyable. You'd want to have salt, you'd want to have pepper, you'd want to have butter, you know, all these different layers that go on it that are just going to add these little incremental increases to my, dopamine receptors and my pleasure centers. And it's the same, you know, when I'm looking at anything. For example, let's take, I see a girl and she's wearing, one of those fluoro orange tops. Like, it wouldn't just be the fluoro orange top, but it would be the fluoro orange top in contrast to the pants, in contrast to the other colors around. Like, if there's only one color, it loses its appeal because you don't see it. And it's very funny how our mind works like that. But it's understanding this. So it's all about, like, in our visual stimuli, it's all about the contrasting in colors. In our taste, it's the contrasting in flavors. In our sounds, when I listen to music, it's not just one note that brings enjoyment, but it's the contrast between notes. It's the vocal range. Like, if there was a singer who only sang in one tone, well, they wouldn't be very good, because it's like one tone is not appealing. Whereas if they're singing in different vocal tones, it's the contrast between the highs and the lows. Just to the same, when, for example, we're using physical stimuli, so like running, exercising, whatever it may be, they're pretty much the only physical stimuli that I use. Exercising, lifting weights. Like, it's, when we're lifting weights, it's the contrast between the relaxed state and then the fully like contracted state, or the, I don't know the word, but basically when we're in, how I would put it is, when we're in full pumps and when we're under the maximum pressure of strain to when we're under no strain. That's what gives the enjoyment. Because if we're always under strain, like it's sort of there's no experience. And that's sort of what our mind works on, is it's trying to experience different things, but the only way we can experience light is in the absence of darkness. And the only way we can experience dark is in the absence of light. So it's, these differences that are what our brain seeks. So it's sort of like, I can't be positive in life if there's not negative situations trying to bring me down. Because if there's nothing negative in life, then positive doesn't exist. Like, that's the funny thing, is we need that contrast with everything. So in terms of, our biochemical responses, if we're always getting dopamine rushes like a drug addict, because you think about this, like, think about the foods you eat, you know, the activities you do. If you drink alcohol, if you smoke, tobacco, if you have nicotine, chew nicotine, if you use drugs, like, the thing is if we're always getting that dopamine, right? If we're always getting that serotonin, then what happens is it becomes numb. It ceases to work. So it's that contrast between, having none and then having some. So if we're always, like, for example, if we're always eating, let's say high amounts of animal fat in terms of butter and cheese in every meal, like, it sort of starts to lose its flavor, its taste. We need more and more and more to get the same dopamine responses, because that's essentially what cheese does. It's either oxytocin or dopamine that it releases into your brain. So, like, when we talk about in society, drug addicts, everyone is a drug addict because the drugs are up here. It's just different activities to release those drugs. Because eating cheese and shooting heroin, okay, while in the external environment, we're not going to go and fucking rob your mum to buy a block of cheese, but it's like it still plays on the same biochemical responses that heroin does. It's just at a much more minute level, but because we're eating it so much, it's so funny, because I notice people, when I talk to them about being plant-based, they always tell me, "Oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't go without, cheese, milk, this and that, the high fat content and really rich animal products." And the funny thing is, like, personally, I used to eat so much dairy and cheese that I have bad lactose intolerance. So when I ate cheese, I would, like, fall asleep. So if I ate too much dairy, like, it would cause me, because it took so much energy for my body to process it, because I had, overloaded my body. Now, when I talk about overloading my body, I used to drink 2 liters of iced coffee every day, 7 days a week, like, on a small amount. I used to eat, you know, like 2 or 3 pizzas a day. Like, I ate a lot of dairy, a lot of cheese, a lot of meat. And the funny thing is, like, for me, like, I was really addicted because I really enjoyed those products. I loved iced coffee. But unfortunately, you know, our body builds up an intolerance when we have too much of something. It ceases to be able to effectively process it. It's the same with diabetes. If we have too much sugar in our life, then our body is unable to sort of, work through and break it down in the, like, again, no doctor here. Diabetes works in the two ways. Either it can't break down the insulin or it overproduces the insulin. I got no clue how it works with that, but essentially, our body's unable to process that in our diet. So it's so funny for me. I was forced off of it, but I would still eat dairy quite regularly, even though it would make me feel sick. And it was so funny because that sort of behavior is the same as a drug addict. Where a drug addict, even though the the withdrawals, the addiction makes the drugs make them feel so negative, they still desire it. And it's so funny because that's the power of the biochemical responses in our mind, is that our mind gets used to it in terms of, you know, our mind gets used to always having that dopamine. So for example, you know, and just putting it out there, my life philosophy is enjoy life, don't stress. I don't want to be healthy, I just want to enjoy life. Do you know what I mean? So, like, when I'm talking about dieting and things like that, like, just understand, like, I went plant based because I want a six pack. That's it. I just personally don't like fat on me. I like to be in good shape. And I found that, you know, that plant based was the right way for me. But if I could eat animal products and still feel the same way, like as good as I feel on plant based, then I would. So, like, I don't really care. Like, I'm not preaching health. What I'm saying is, like, we crave the biochemical responses in our mind. Okay? And the easiest way many of us have found to really control this is through substances, through foods, through external environments, so other people. Like, addiction is to the biochemical responses. Okay? Like, addiction is not to the substance, it's to the benefits your body gives you. Like, I used to be addicted to sex. Okay? My whole motto was it didn't matter what kind of a girl I had sex with because I was there. Like, I was highly egotistical. Like, so I didn't really care who I had sex with. It was more just having sex. And I had to work through that. Like, it's just the dopamine rushes, it's the serotonin, it's the oxytocin, whatever you call it. Like, that's the thing. I've been addicted to many things in life, but the funny thing is, like, not so much that I realized that I was, addicted to sex and then just changed it. No, I had to disgust myself to the point where I just didn't want to have sex anymore. Do you sort of get it? But the funny thing was, what I was trying to get was that sense and feeling of connection. And that's what's so funny, is it's not like, you know, I'm a sex addict and I can't control myself. No. It's that I just thought that, like, I had learned that sex got me that feeling. But the funny thing is, what I crave is the connection. So, like, it's sort of getting to a point where it's like there's the shortcut of the quick fix, i.e., if I want dopamine, maybe I just go and, drink, for example, or whatever you do to get dopamine. You know what I mean? But it's like I can go out there and drink, or I can find another way to release dopamine in my brain. Because, like, drinking doesn't make you happy, but a result of drinking, the biochemical states in your mind alter. So your mind releases different chemicals. Just to the same if you like smoking weed. I like smoking weed. And I do that because I enjoy the dopamine hit. Like, but the other reasons come with the ADHD that I enjoy not thinking. Like, so it's like the shortcut is smoking weed. The long answer or the long way is through meditation and all of that. But I enjoy the act of smoking. So it's sort of like, you know, six of six of one, half a dozen of the other. It doesn't really matter. Like if you want to be a purist and live the pure life, then we want to work out the longer routes to getting the the things. So for example, if for example I want, the drugs or the biochemical releases of oxytocin, right? The connection chemical, I can go out there and seek, short term connections, or I can seek a long term connection. Like both will release it, but one is healthier than the other. Because having many short term partners affects you psychologically in terms of, affects your self worth, affects this and that. Like, because we got to understand that it's all about the habits. So, like, addiction comes down predominantly to habit. Like, for example, I enjoy smoking cigarettes, but it's like, it's not the tobacco that I enjoy, it's the habit of smoking. Like, that's the funny thing. It's not that I'm craving the tobacco, but I'm craving that habit when I try and quit. Does it sort of make sense? Just to the same, if I was quitting alcohol, it's not so much that the alcohol that I miss, but it's the habit around drinking. So that's one of the funny things. As I sort of stopped drinking, because for me personally, like I drank up until the point that where no matter how little alcohol I had, if I fell asleep, I pissed myself. That's what's funny. Like if I have a couple of beers, if I fall asleep, I'll piss myself. It just happens. Because it makes me like I'm naturally a deep sleeper. So if I have alcohol, like I just do not wake up. So like for me, quitting alcohol was easy because I just got sick and tired of pissing myself. Like that's it. Like if that didn't happen, the incentive to quit wouldn't have been that high. But the other thing was is I didn't enjoy like when we talk about drinking, like in one night I would drink upwards of a couple of liters of alcohol. Like 5 liters of wine is the record I had at university in one night. Like I used to scull a liter at a time. Like just because I could. Like that was the thing. I enjoyed going to the extreme. And that's a funny thing. Like it wasn't like I never drank alcohol because I enjoyed the taste. Like I just enjoyed being blackout drunk, doing stupid things. But the problem was, once I got drunk, like all my inhibition went. So typically, I would strip off naked and run around naked. I would do stupid things, like I would waste money, like hundreds to thousands of dollars in a night on alcohol, being stupid, like wasting money in the pokies, like wasting money, on cigarettes. Like so many negative things would happen when I drank. But it's not those negative things that lowered the incentive for drinking. Like it was the overall. But for me, I got sick and tired of flipping my mattress. That's it. Got sick and tired of waking up in piss. And anyone who knows me, that knew me when I drank, like they'd probably be able to tell you times I pissed myself. So many times. So many times. Like it didn't really bother me because it was just a side effect for me of drinking. But like that's the thing, I had to learn other ways of dealing